Alright, so what's up guys, and welcome to my channel once again. In this video I'll be counting down my top 10 Freddy Krueger kills. So let's begin, shall we? Alright, Freddy Krueger, a man who was famously played by Robert Englund and who's just as iconic today as Frankenstein or the werewolf or the mummy. He's been invading our nightmares since 1984 when the first Nightmare on Elm Street came out, which was directed by Wes Craven, who also happened to write it. But of course, after the first movie, all that went downhill with with a few exceptions. The other movies, although they might have sucked, they were still entertaining, and let's face it, what makes the Nightmare on Elm Street movies is the deaths of the characters. So without further ado, here are the top 10 Freddy Krueger kills. Let's begin with number 10. Okay, now this death is probably one of the weirdest deaths in the whole series. Well, to me, I like it a lot because I'm a person who loves comic books, as you can see. So this death, although it wasn't as sadistic as the other ones, it was still a pretty fun death. So here it goes. Alright, so here we have Mark, a big comic book fan, just like myself. You know, he's just reading his comic book when all of a sudden he just gets sucked into it. Literally. Suddenly, of course, Freddy appears. He begins running for his life because nobody wants to be killed by Freddy, you know? Then Freddy pops out on a fucking skateboard. I guess he pretty much just punks him. Then when Freddy pisses him off, he turns into a freaking superhero. And it almost looks like he's gonna take Freddy down. That is until Super Freddy pops out. You can tell the creators really had fun while filming this scene. And plus, this is one of the few times that Freddy was played by somebody else other than Robert Englund. After he slashes him, he turns into a paper, which is a pretty great effect. Watching the color get drained out of him. And then Freddy literally starts ripping him to shreds. Now, of course this is only death number 10. We still have 9 more to go, so let's go ahead and go to number 9. Now this next death was probably a weird one too. It came from the worst movie of the franchise, in my opinion, Freddy's Dead. It was more of a Looney Tune kind of movie, but still, it has some pretty great deaths, and since I love video games, I think it was pretty awesome. So we have Spencer, a guy who just loves to get high. He's just chilling, you know, watching TV. And Freddy appears on the TV screen.
Looks like a frying pan and some eggs to me.
And since he's high, I guess he thinks he's tripping, you know? Suddenly he gets pulled into the television. And into a video game. Where he sees his dad.
Be like me. Be like me. Be like me.
But wait, Spencer starts fighting back.
I don't want to be like you. Not like you.
And an even bigger dad appears.
Now I'm playing with power.
All right. Super Spencer.
It turns out Spencer's being controlled in in real life too. I guess he was sleepwalking or something.
Spencer!
And then Freddy pushes him into a bottomless pit, and that's pretty much how he dies. Like I said, not the best death, but it does deserve a spot in the top 10. Alright, so this death happens in the same movie, Freddy's Dead. Like I said, it wasn't the best movie. This is the one that made Freddy Krueger all out wacky. And this is the more Looney Tune death I could probably have on this list. And it isn't a bad death, but I think it is a little sadistic. So after having altered his hearing aid, Freddy Krueger pulls out a chalkboard and he starts scratching it with his glove. Carlos begs him not to do it, but he just keeps on doing it. This is where it gets wacky. Now his head can't take it, and well, this is what happens. And we get one of the best lines in the whole series.
Nice hearing from you, Carlos.
Now we go all the way from the final nightmare to the first movie. Now everybody knows that Johnny Depp started his acting career in the first Nightmare on Elm Street movies. And one of the best deaths in that first movie was seeing him get sucked into a bed. So here we go. Poor old Johnny Depp, just laying down, chilling in his bed, when all of a sudden... Remember guys, this wasn't any CGI. They actually used practical effects for this, and they used the same equipment they used for Tina's death scene, which I'll talk about later on. Now let's go on. Now this death is from one of the best films in the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. And it's also a little weird and a little funny, but since I'm kind of nerdy-ish, I can basically relate to the character, so I thought it deserved a spot on the list. Alright, so here we start out with Willis in the dream world looking for his friends. And of course in the real world he's able to walk, but in his dreams, you know, you can do anything, so... Anyway, Freddy appears controlling a giant wheelchair. I think this scene is really cool because he's using the wheelchair to attack him emotionally and not just physically. All of a sudden, Willis remembers, wait a minute, I'm in the dream world, I can do anything. I can be anything I want. And he decides to turn into the Wizard Master. That's right. He destroys the chair and starts fighting Freddy back. That is, until Freddy picks him up and stabs him in the heart. But not without delivering this classic line.
Sorry, kid. I don't believe in fairy tales.
Well, as most of you can see, I'm a person who loves watching TV, so I didn't think there could have been a more horrible way to die than this death right here. Alright, so here we have Jennifer, a girl who just loves to watch TV. So what she's doing is to not try to fall asleep by watching TV.
And then maybe you can make it.
Can I ask you something?
We first see Freddy on screen, of course. The TV starts messing up. and then she goes up to it to try to fix it. When suddenly 2 hands pop out of the television screen as Freddy delivers one of his classic lines, and one of his first lines too, which is,
This is it, Jennifer. Your big break in TV. Up the prime time, bitch.
now let's move on to the next one. Now we're back to the first movie, and probably one of my favorite deaths and Freddy Krueger's first victim. Well, on screen at least. The most shocking thing about this death was that you were led to believe that this was going to be the main character, but the shocking thing is she died. So she wasn't. So let's watch. So here we have Tina inside Dream World. By the way, I think this is one of the best recorded scenes in the whole series. And Freddy Krueger literally scared the shit out of me here. He never looked so creepy. One of his classic lines. He begins chasing Tina around Dream World, just creeping the shit out of her. Remember guys, this was at a time where there was no special effects, so it was all practical.
Watch this.
Now, I think the cool thing about this room is that they actually used a rotating room to have Tina go all over the place. Knocks her boyfriend out. She starts getting dragged all over her room and slashed as her boyfriend watches helplessly and shot, not knowing what to do. Now guys, I think this was one of the most messed up deaths as well, because imagine seeing your girlfriend being killed, especially in this way. Now let's move on. Okay, now this death is one of those deaths that where Freddy chooses to attack you emotionally rather than physically, just like the previous one. And I think it's probably one of the most fucked up deaths there is. We start out with Debbie working out. She's one of those tough chicks, and she's pretty hot too, gotta admit.
I don't believe in you.
I believe in you.
Then Freddy appears and bends her arms backwards.
No pain. No gain.
Which breaks them, and then the fucking cockroach feet start popping up. By the way, cockroach is her biggest fear, so this is the most fucked up shit that can happen to a person. Because who isn't creeped out by cockroaches? She tries running away, but she's inside what appears to be a box. But wait a minute. It's a cockroach trap. Of course, poor Debbie tries to run. And she falls on her face as she tries to pick herself up. Her face literally peels off to reveal a cockroach's head. Basically, Freddy Krueger slowly turns her into the thing she hates the most. We see that Freddy's actually the one holding the trap.
You can shake him.
And then he squishes the shit out of her. And that's the end of Debbie. Alright guys, so here we are at the end of the list. Well, almost at the end. But this is the most painful Freddy Krueger death there was. And number one might not be as painful as this one. But trust me, number one isn't bad either. So let's just watch number two for right now.
It's a beautiful evening here in downtown Springwood, and we'll be back with the music in just a moment. Right now, we're open for your calls.
So here we have poor Dad driving at night, trying not to fall asleep. But wait, he's already asleep.
Ever since he was seduced by that bimbo slut, poor Alice.
Mom? If I were you, lady,
His truck starts moving by itself. Of course, it's Freddy controlling it. And he crashes, but wait a minute. He survives. Well, he can't get back inside the truck, so he hops aboard a motorcycle. And you think he might be able to get away, actually. That is until wires come out of the motorcycle and they start going inside Dad. I told you guys this death was pretty gruesome. Then Freddy's face appears in the motorcycle.
boy feels the need for speed.
One of his classic lines again. He's basically part of the motorcycle now. Just imagine how painful this would be, having a bunch of wires go inside you and part of your skin falling off. It was a pretty cool death, gotta be honest. And finally, he kills poor Dad. So here we are now, finally, at number one. Now this death, not a lot of people may agree with it, but it's one that stuck with me since I was a little kid. And it was the first Freddy Krueger movie that I watched, Dream Warriors. And to this day, I'm still freaked out of puppets because of this single death. I am of course talking about Philip's death. One of his puppets comes to life. And it turns out to be Freddy, of course. He slits his wrists and then pulls out his veins, which is pretty fucking painful. And actually starts treating him like a puppet too. Now this is one of those things where I said, like, sometimes Freddy uses what you hate the most to get you emotionally, but right here he's actually using something the boy loves, which is even more messed up. To everybody it appears that Philip is sleepwalking, but in reality is Freddy controlling him. Now just imagine being treated like that. Having your veins pulled out and being controlled like if you were some kind of puppet. Of course he makes him sleepwalk to the highest room in the building.
What's the matter?
And his friends try to yell at him, trying to wake him up. But then again, this is a Nightmare on Elm Street movie, and he isn't the main character, so you already know nothing's gonna be done about it. And finally, Freddy ends his suffering. Like I said, not a lot of people are going to agree with me, but just the way that scene was shot, it makes it worthy of being number one. So anyway, guys, what was your favorite Freddy Krueger death? Let me know in the comments below, and once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.